On a pretty regular basis, I have a lot of you guys comment and say that you like the variety of stuff that's on my little show we got going here. So I do a lot of different stuff here. My primary job, obviously, is restoring stuff like that and junk like that. Huh. That stupid light's driving me nuts. Anyways, when I opened up this shop, you know, you're doing a lot of work outside the big door there, and pretty much every day had something outside the old car stuff working, and it didn't take very long. I gotta start getting some stuff here. Didn't take very long, and people from up and down the road, I got a 4-mile stretch of county road out here in front of me. They started coming by and asking if I could fix this, that, or the other. Well, I like money, and I can fix stuff generally. So I would say, sure, bring it on down. And typically, it was simplest stuff like starters, alternators. Long story short is I have a lot of small mechanical jobs that come in just from random stuff breaking up and down, all my neighbors and some family, but a lot of stuff comes through the door that needs worked on. Just people they can trust, I suppose is what you'd say. So long story short, we're gonna fix some stuff today, and we're gonna see basically how I approach a mechanical project. Now, I don't have any formal mechanical training. Like, I didn't go to school for anything related to this. My training, extent of that was I took a ATAE technical class, whatever you want to call it, in high school, which essentially was just learn how to use welders, tools, stuff like that. But wasn't automotive related. So everything I've learned is self-taught. Right out of high school, I worked for 2 years at a mechanic shop. It was a tire shop one side, mechanic shop on the other, sort of, mainly oil changes, but we did a lot of starters, alternators, light mechanic work. So did that for 2 years, then did construction, then the restoration stuff I've done for 25 years since I was a teenager. But the advantage that has given me is when you go to school and learn how to do stuff by the book, you know, plugging your computer scanner in, you tend to think along the lines of a pre-programmed set of ideas, you know. And that can be beneficial, obviously, having the electrical, technical wizardry part nailed down, but it can also cause you to get tunnel vision. So the advantage for me has been I've had to analyze problems without all the technological stuff. So it was years before I ever plugged a scanner into a new car, and I would still try to figure out what was wrong with them with, you know, just dead reckoning. So what a lot of mechanics struggle with is thinking outside the box. So me not having any professional training, generally speaking, you have to be a little bit more thorough and methodical in your approach to doing things, and that's just kind of how it works for me. So today we got this 2008, I think it is, Ford Expedition 5.4 we're going to tinker with, and that little guy, what is it? Little Honda SUV. Both of them bad misfire, so let's dig in. So this little gym is owned by a buddy of mine, works at a body shop down the road. He's a hands-on kind of guy, likes to work on stuff, fix stuff himself. This is a fixer-upper car. He's got in here and done some work. I drove it. As far as the test drive goes, if I can get the hood open. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, as far as the test drive goes, has an obvious misfire when it's cold. It's not really that bad once it's warmed up. But he's done a bunch of stuff. He's done plugs, he's done wires, put a distributor in it, fuel pump, or I think he did a fuel pump, and also fuel filter. Said the filter was nasty. His present problem and what he's been fighting all along is a bad misfire. start it up, it's really bad. So first thing I do is a general inspection. I mean, there's nothing obvious. Plug wires aren't off. There's no fuel leaking anywhere. So we'll start it up real quick and show you what it does. Like I said, it's drivable. The misfire is most obvious when you first start it. First try to drive it. Oops. It has a check engine light, and the problem he's been fighting are random misfires, and misfires on, I think, 1, 3, and 5, or no, it's 4-cylinder, 1, 3, 4, doesn't matter. 2 or 3 of the cylinders he's been chasing misfires. Check engine light is on for those reasons. I have not even plugged my scanner into it, so we're just going to wing it. It does not overheat. Sounds like it's got something done to the exhaust. Just from a quick sniff of the exhaust, it smells like fuel mixture's a little off. Okay, so it's not a severe misfire, it's not a neutral, but first thing that I want to check all the time is work that other people have done to it. Looking at the plug wires, that's my first concern. New non-OEM spark plug wires suck. Quality is terrible. These are a Cable Master high performance ignition, double silicone installation. So first thing I'm going to do is just kind of give the engine a once over. Like I said, plugs, wires, everything appears to be intact. It's not like a backfire type misfire, so that would lead me to believe that it's not a mechanical problem. And just sitting here listening to the engine, I can kind of hear a real light tick sound. You probably can't hear it. But what it sounds like to me is a spark jumping the ground somewhere, like a short in the plug wire, ticking, like hitting the metal. If it's dark, I can just shut the hood or pop the hood here and look at it in the dark and see stuff. I'm going to stick my head down on here, hopefully not get blasted by these wires. Cheaply made electrical components, especially spark plug wires, there's a lot of voltage going through there, like typically 30 to 40,000 volts on a lot of systems. So if the insulation is not up to par, you're going to have a problem. Now the ticking I'm hearing is kind of isolated, random, it's not consistent. Throttle her up a little bit. I can just hear like a tick. So my suspicion is, first off, that these are cheap wires and they could be arcing and sparking. I can hear it a lot on this one. You probably cannot hear that. So I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to pull them boots out, and I'm going to look at the boots, and I'm going to look at the spark plug and see if I see any evidence of spark jumping. So we'll start with this one that's making the most noise. So what you want to look for is some kind of a burn mark. Sometimes there'll be a light brown mark somewhere, just very small lots of times. I typically recommend OEM spark plug wires, especially on newer stuff. Not really seeing much. Tiny brown mark right there, but I think that's just from rubbing the inside of the thing. Now this lower section here looks to be like a molded on rubber. Like this piece my thumbnail is on is soft. So that could be a potential jump problem. It's electricity coming through that part there. Alright, I gotta go get a flashlight. Alright, got my flashlight. Usually, if you've got a coil boot or something jumping on your spark plug wire, it's more noticeable on the plug itself, because the plug is like light colored white porcelain, you know, so it's harder to find evidence of something on a plug wire itself. But I'm gonna pull a couple of these out, and what I'm gonna do is look down in there and see if I can see burn marks on the plug. Nothing, no evidence of it on that. Okay, so what we're looking for is any black marks that are going to be on the spark plug itself, especially the porcelain part. Let's look in the first hole. Focus. Trying to get her to focus. It ain't interested. See that little black mark right there in the dead center of the shot by the electrode? That's clear evidence of spark jump. Let's look at the next one. That one doesn't seem to show it. I'm gonna go get my plug socket and pull them out. All right, got my plug socket. Now, lots of times if you have a misfire that does not have an associated misfire code, lots of times that's an ignition problem beyond the coil, like plug wire, plug itself, something along those lines. Basically, the computer doesn't know exactly what's going on, or just has no idea there is a code. So lots of times you'll just get a random misfire code, like a PO300. Basically, a lot of vehicles can't break down, at least not with a simple scanner, can't break down what individual cylinder is having a problem. In fancier scanners, you can get in there and you can look at all the different information about exactly what's going on at what point in time, and you can look at cylinder contribution charts and all this stuff. But most of the time, you guys are trying to troubleshoot their own stuff, and you don't have that. Okay. See that mark on that porcelain? That black mark? That's clear and obvious evidence of a failed ignition sequence. Now it shows a reasonable, potentially a little lean, or just brand new on the plug. I think it's just brand new. But so what's happening here is this plug sets up in the end of the boot like this, just like this, and this sits in this hollow tube, and your cylinder is here. Now with electricity, it always follows the path to ground, basically the least resistance. So the way this is designed, your electricity comes through here, straight into the top of the plug, straight through this strap here. Well, that's the ground strap, but straight through to the center electrode, to that little tab, and jumps to here when it grounds, when it fires. And that's your spark will be right here, and that'll ignite the fuel in the cylinder and whatever. But what happens is, if you have cheap spark plug wires or boots, like I said, electricity follows the path of least resistance. Now, when you've got a cylinder under pressure and it's compressing, and it's essentially creating a resistance from basically trying to blow the spark out, if you will. Like we try to hold a match on a windy day, it's kind of a similar thing to that, where it becomes easier for the electricity to jump through to an engine block somewhere else than it is to fire the plug. So what's happening here is, at least on this cylinder, is the electricity is coming in and it's jumping right through this plastic boot. I would guess right where this molded part is, you know, because that's right where that center electrode is. Your spark's coming in and it's sparking out right into your cylinder head instead of going straight down into the cylinder. So it's just going tick, 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 and that's what that tick sound is. You're hearing that tick, 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 tick. So definitely what's going on in that hole. So If it's, I don't see black marks on those, the other three, but chances are if it's doing it here, it's occasionally doing it there too. And that will give you misfire codes, which is what this one's doing. So he's covered his bases. Fuel, getting clean, fresh fuel, new distributor, new wires, new spark plugs. So what I'm gonna do is recommend that he buy an OEM set of spark plug wires, because that is a clear and obvious sign of a misfire. But the only reason that black could be there is from spark jumping out into the engine block where my little finger is here, and not going out the end of the plug. So this guy likes to fix his own stuff. I probably won't even charge him for this. Say, throw some plug wires on it, see what it does. That's going to be my opinion here. So I'm going to put these plugs back in it and get on to the next vehicle. All right, this one is going to be a little more fun. And by fun, I don't actually mean that. Like I said, it's an 08. Tell you what the complaint is. Lost compression in one bank and or one cylinder. Buddy of mine, good customer of mine, bought this to flip. He likes to tinker with stuff. It does run, it does drive. It's got a severe misfire, but it has no codes. So typically something that has no codes means that the computer hasn't picked up a fault, or it hasn't picked up anything that's out of parameter enough to throw a code through a certain number of cycles or whatever. So I don't know, it may have a code, but it's just not something that'll come on until you've hit however many cycles it takes to trip a light. But we'll start it up. I've driven this about 4 miles. And while driving it, it never died. Once you get up to about 40 miles an hour, if you're not on the gas, it really feels like that it doesn't even have a misfire, really. It's like you tip into the gas and it stumbles a little bit. It does a little better once it's warmed up, but right now it's just barely running. If you take your foot off the gas, it quits, or tries to. It has an obvious severe misfire. Put her in gear and it goes to bucking and chugging. Okay, the idle's picked up. You can tell she's chugging pretty good. The exhaust smells terrible, and the one thing that I immediately hear is an exhaust leak on this side. It's pretty bad. You hear it ticking. I guess it's coming from right there. I can feel exhaust coming right out of that flange. Heat blowing right on my hand, chugging. So, can't tell if that is potentially... Let's see. It still has its catalytic converters on it. Doesn't leak anything, which is pretty typical of most Fords I work on. They're not leaky machines. Okay, so the problem with an exhaust leak there is it is in front of the cat. And what you have when you have a big exhaust leak in front of a cat is the O2 sensors don't read correctly. You're getting a bad reading. Kind of see the motor chugging a little bit. So first thing that I need to do before I do any troubleshooting is see if I can tighten that up or replace the gasket. There's definitely no timing chain slap. Timing chains on these lots of times make noise. I don't hear anything there. All I hear is just a very light clatter on this side. And it sounds more like possibly a rocker arm noise. But this is also the side with a bad exhaust leak, so. But another thing I note is that coil is new, that coil is new, that one is probably new. Now you can hear a backfire out of that pipe there. It should not sound like that. First thing I'm going to do is get my my Noid light set and see if the injectors are firing. It's this little guy from O'Reilly's. I just buy these sets usually. Lots of times these are their rental tools, but lots of times people have damaged them. Let's see. Let's try this one. Alright, so this is going to be kind of awkward. What I got to do is unplug an injector and plug that into it. What we're looking for is an electrical impulse, a flash. You notice the engine did not run any different at all when I pulled that out of there. That means that fuel injector is getting a pulse. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of them real quick and bring you back to let you know what I find out. So I've gone through and I've checked. We're getting a flash on all the injectors. So the computer is telling the injectors to fire. Now that we've got some heat in the engine, this is pretty much what it's doing. Popping and farting out of this bank. I gotta see if I can tighten up that exhaust flange, because with that massive leak there, we're just going to be, you know, chasing our tails. That could be contributing to a multitude of different problems as far as making it run terrible. So we're going to crawl down under here and see if we can figure out what's going on here. It's always fun having no first-hand knowledge of what's going on a car. I have never seen this truck before. So I don't know what mechanic's been in here, what mechanic hasn't been in here, you know, who gave up on it, told the owner it had a dead cylinder. Yeah, that would be why it has an exhaust leak. Missing the nut right there. And the other one is in place. So why would it be missing a nut? I ask myself. Could be a missing nut just because it fell off. Could be missing a nut because the prior mechanic got under here suspecting potentially a plugged cat and maybe just loosen that up. Sometimes if an engine's got a totally plugged cat, you can pull the exhaust system apart and let the exhaust bypass the cat. And you know, the symptoms of a plugged cat will go away like immediately. So it could be that. I don't know. I'm gonna go get a nut, tighten that puppy up. Hopefully it's not stripped. So do that now. All right, so I found a nut, put it on that exhaust. So we're gonna crank it up, see what it does. I suspect no different. More than likely, the problem we have is not directly related to that exhaust leak, but you cannot properly troubleshoot a modern fuel injection system with a huge leak in between the manifold and the catalytic converter. Try again. Same no start. She's not happy. Okay. Started back up. I wouldn't say it's smoother. See, once you get up to like 2500, you Can't even hardly feel a misfire. It kind of hunts around different RPM. I'm gonna see if I can get the thing to run, just kind of sit here for a few minutes. Just let it run, see what it does. It's idling poorly. So I would almost suspect that a previous mechanic pulled that off. I don't know what path of diagnosis they were going to designate that we have a dead cylinder. Just based on the new coils here, I would suspect potentially one of these two. Although when I pulled an injector off over there, the wiring, it didn't do any different. It made no noticeable difference in how the engine was running. Another thing I noticed, look how much dirt is on top of that boot, including these. Like it's been some time since that's been pulled off. Also, has some new sensors, so that leads me to believe that mechanics have been trying to troubleshoot this thing for a while. And that always makes it complicated, because you don't know what they did, what they didn't do. It looks like it has a new intake on it, if these do have a common failure point on the intake. So I got rained on yesterday, or this morning I mean, had to quit. Okay, I got two codes to pop up, a P2196 and 2197. They're both through O2 sensor problems, primary, the upstreams. One showing, let's see, one showing rich, one showing lean. One of them is not switching properly. What I'm gonna do at this point is pull the plugs one at a time, probably also do a compression check on each one at a time, because previous owner, like I said, was told that it had a dead cylinder. I hear nothing, like no sign of any stuck open valve or anything like that, but I'm gonna go ahead and pull one plug at a time. Kind of want to get a read on what they look like, mainly right bank versus left, see what we find out there. But that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna blow the holes out, pull one plug out at a time. I'm praying that they've got the one-piece fully welded plugs in, like the Champions, or at least that they're Motorcraft and they've been changed before. I can't remember what the cutoff year for the one-piece plugs was. This is 2008. Potentially it could have them, potentially it won't. I had to be real careful in the first plug, but I'll bring you back if I find out something interesting there. I'm gonna check a plug read real quick. Well, here we are. I pulled a number one cylinder. She had 180 psi. Pulled number two, this plug here. Let's see. See how it has almost no burn marks on it at all? It essentially looks brand new. Well, I put a compression tester on it. Showed 0 psi. I still have my tester tube down in there. So, we should be getting full compression cylinder pressure right out of this hole here. Like, I got my finger on there. There's literally 0 compression out of this hole. I mean, absolutely nothing. So, I'm gonna pull that rod back out of there, make sure my O-ring didn't slip. But this cylinder is completely dead. What I'm gonna do at this point is move this junk over there where it's not blocking the shop door. I got a wheel bearing and front end work I might end up doing in a day or two. But in any event, we're gonna move it over there, and I'm going to pull the remaining 3 coils off of this side of the thing and pull a valve cover off. And I'm just gonna boldly make a prediction based on some experience with these motors that I'm gonna see something that I have not seen before with one of these. I'm gonna say with 0 compression, The only way you could get that is if one valve was, I suppose, hung all the way open. What would be another option? Or just one valve stuck completely shut and the other one working. It's literally doing nothing. It's pumping air a little bit, but nothing. But anyways, I'm gonna predict we have a rocker arm has seized and fallen off and is no longer operating a valve, or that it's completely missing, i.e. some prior mechanic pulled the valve cover off, took the rocker arm out, and left it. Because these will, if you don't keep up with the oil changes, use good quality oil, they will eat up the rollers on the rockers. So that's my prediction. I won't edit it out because that would be dishonest. Pull it over there, pull the valve cover off, and we'll find out together. Oh, I got all the valve cover bolts loose. These 2008s are way easier than like the 2006. I just did timing chains with my wife. She's got one of these. So I'm gonna try to bust the seal loose here. Probably won't be able to get the valve cover off with one hand. Okay. Gotta watch your gasket here around your cam facer activator. Okay, she's stuck on the bottom, but not from a bolt. There it comes. All right, that wire harness here catching me. I'm gonna have to put you down for a second. Well, valve cover is off, and I already see carnage. Okay, cylinder 1, good hole. Cylinder 2, not so good. We got carnage. That little spring there, it's not supposed to be right there. It's supposed to be like that one here in the center of the shot. See the top of that cam lobe? That one right there. Got a big groove in it. What happened is what happens a lot with these motors. The rocker arm has a little, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, there you go. See the little roller bearing there? The needle bearings in that start to get loose, get some slop in them. The bearings eventually fail, and that thing will actually seize. The roller will stop. At that point in time, it just skids across the top of your camshaft there. Metal on metal, just grinds and grinds and grinds. And once you get to that point, what happened here is what's just going to happen next. It's going to eventually fall out, get in a bind, knock the keeper off the top of the valve stem, and you're going to drop a valve down in the motor. You're going to wind up with your spring all cattywampus in there, and that's just how that's going to work. Looking back farther, I don't see any other ones that have had that failure, although it makes no difference. So if you have a 5.4 or 4/6, especially the 3 valves, and they start clattering up here on the top end under the valve cover, that's your warning sign. You're fixing to have problems. So get it taken care of. You can pop this valve cover off. It took me from starting this valve cover removal to where I am now 15 minutes, 20 at the max. And you can replace that rocker arm that's failed before it gets to the point where it's eating a cam. And I think the rocker arms are like $4 or $5 a piece. So this guy has caused catastrophic engine failure. It had to have been making noise for a long time. They chose to ignore it, and now they're winding up with a massive engine problem. So let's see, where'd it go? I thought I saw the valve keeper. Yep, right there, center of the shot there. That's supposed to be on top of the valve, which is laying way over there. Anyways, well, I do believe that further diagnosis is unnecessary. All right, well, if your 5.4 starts making noise, clattering, especially under the... Alrighty then, well, now that the troubleshooting portion is done, we can talk to the owner, see what he wants to do. So this is a common enough wear item that, like when you do your timing chains, which you should do like minimum like 150,000 miles, although people typically don't do them until they're 200,000. Anyways, you always check these. Kind of the rule of thumb for me as far as which ones have to be changed is when you run your fingernail across there. If you can, they all have wear on them, but if you can hook a fingernail in a groove where there's severe scratching or anything like you can feel with your finger, basically you need to put a cam in it, which is not that difficult. You just have to pull all the followers out with the cam tool and then pull the phaser off. And if you're doing timing chains anyways, do it. Now I officially, on the record, recommend replacing the all of the rocker arms, but like I said, they're $200 to $300 a set, depending on if you get them on sale or not. This is a 3 valve, it's an MR 1851. So here's what we got. Your failure point, like I told you before we tore it apart, there's little needle bearings in there. So I usually just replace any of them that are questionable, and the way that I find out if they have wear or not is using both hands. I grab them, I grab the bearing, and I try to move it this direction, kind of this way. Usually you can feel if there's any slop at all, like if this moves this way or this way, like you can see it's got slop on in the bearings. Replace it, because it will fail. What happens first is those bearings wear out, and then eventually they get to the point where they just seize or they start falling out. Then, like I said, happens. They completely seize. This stops turning completely, and when that seizes, it locks on your camshaft and the valve action with the cam rolling on it. It just burns the cam lobe up. And then worst case scenario, like this had, it just falls out when the tolerance, basically it wears down enough where you've lost most of your height. See, this one's quite a bit taller than that one. Once you lose that height, the valve can't compensate and push up on it enough to keep it, you know, where it's supposed to be, and it falls out. In a perfect world, it would fall out and not land on top of this, but what happened here is this became dislodged. The cam came up, smashed it, jammed it up against the top of that, and knocked the keepers right out of it. So they're probably down in the oil pan somewhere. Two little half moon crescent things that fit down in there. The valve's nowhere to be seen, so that means it's in the cylinder or somewhere in the exhaust now. But see here, that thing just completely seized. Flat spotted on the top, flat spotted on the bottom, and definitely looks nothing like this. So cheap insurance, man, just replace them.